Hey guys, welcome to Through the Bible Verse by Verse, a plain and simple study of the entire Bible, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse. Currently we are in Judges chapter 17. Now the rest of the book, from 17 to 21, we're going to cover some very horrific stories, which really shows us just how bad Israel's sin had become. Now, I want to say this, don't judge them in that respect, because we're all of us there, but by the grace of God, we could say that. But this will show just the depravity of man. And my continual wonder, of course, is that out of all the peoples of the earth, Israel truly had the manifestation of the true God, the manifestation, God's presence, unlike any other nation, and they sought to be like other nations. And of course, we're moving along. Remember, the period of the judges was about 450 years. So we're coming towards the end of that period, this 400-year period, but just the repeated sin is unbelievable. There's even going to be a story that will be likened what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. But we get there when we get to it. All right, Judges chapter 17. It says, there was a man from the hill country of Ephraim named Micah. He said to his mother, 1,100 pieces of silver taken from you, and that I heard you utter a curse about. Here, I have this silver with me. I took it, so now I return it to you. Then his mother said, my son, you are blessed by the Lord. Now, again, we're going to see a lot of, I guess even we could call this cognitive dissonance to the uttermost. The story gets worse as we go on, though. Verse 3, he returned the 11 pieces of silver to his mother, and his mother said, I personally consecrate the silver to the Lord for my son's benefit, to make a carved image overlaid with silver. So right here, as I said, this story goes horribly wrong, right? She blesses them in the name of the Lord. And now she's saying she's going to have him make a carved image. So they really kind of stepped in idolatry here. Verse 4, so he returned the silver to his mother. She took 5 pounds of silver and gave it to a silversmith, and he made it into a carved image overlaid with silver, and it was in Micah's house. Now, I want to say this too, so that you can understand that when you look at sometimes the suffering of Israel, keep this in mind, this background here, right? So just keep this in mind, that all of the idolatry, all of the sin that is going on behind the scenes. So sometimes people ask, well, why was God harsh on them? He was just. But I mean, just think of the depravity here. Okay, verse 5. This man Micah had a shrine he made into an ephod and household idols, and installed one of his sons to be his priest. In those days there was no king in Israel, and everyone did what he wanted. Now, if you're reading your King James, it says everyone did what was right in his own eyes. And this is the sad case here. The fact that he's made this statement, the writer, in those days there was no king in Israel, seems to be a foreshadowing for the period of the kings of Israel, which will come up in a few short years from this point, maybe 100 years, okay? Verse 7, there was a man there was a young man, a Levite from Bethlehem in Judah, who resided within the clan of Judah. This man left the town of Bethlehem in Judah and settled wherever he could find a place. On his way, he came to Micah's home in the hill country of Ephraim. "Where do you come from?" Micah asked him. He answered, "I am a Levite from Bethlehem in Judah, and I'm going to settle wherever I can find a place." Micah replied, "Stay with me and be my father and priest, and I will give you 4 ounces of silver a year along with your clothing and provisions." So the Levite went in and agreed to stay with the man, and the young man became like one of his sons. Micah consecrated the Levite, and the young man became his priest and lived in Micah's house. And Micah said, "Now I know the Lord will be good to me, because the Levite has become my priest." Now, this is all kinds of wrong here. And by the way, if you look at a lot of ministries today, they're exactly like this. They are, as Jesus called them, hirelings, priests and ministers for hire. And notice he consecrated them. Again, God was in none of this, and that is the most amazing thing. All right, let's go on, because this story gets even worse. All right, chapter 18, verse 1 says, "In those days there was no king in Israel, and the Danite tribe was looking for territory to occupy. Up to that time, no territory had been captured by them among the tribes of Israel. So the Danites sent out 5 brave men from all of their clans, from Zoah to Eshtaol, to scout out the land and explore it. They told them, 'Go and explore the land.' They came to the hill country of Ephraim, and as far as the home of Micah, and spent the night there. While they were near Micah's home, they recognized the speech of the young Levite. So they went over to him and asked, 'Who brought you here? And what are you doing in this place? What is keeping you here?' And he told them what Micah had done for him, and that he had hired him as his priest. And they said to him, 'Please inquire of God, so we will know if we will have a successful journey.' The priest told them, 'Go in peace. The Lord is watching over you, over the journey you are going on.'" Now, they are putting their trust in him simply because he is a Levite priest. Keep this in mind, the bar is extremely low. In other words, let's keep this in mind. It is extremely low in terms of morality, what is right, what is wrong. And by the way, and that's not to say that this priest was speaking on the behalf of God. In other words, there's nothing to say that God was actually telling them to do this. We see the gross wickedness that was going on here. You can also see the how bad religion could be. In other words, religion in every form is this bad. In other words, these men were just making it up as they go. They don't have to say anything that what they were doing was of God. Hiring of the priest, and now here this priest is giving them false guidance, misrepresenting God. Verse 7, the 5 men left and came to Laish, and they saw the people who were there living securely in the same way as the Sidonians, and quiet and unsuspecting. There was nothing lacking in the land and no oppressive ruler. They were far from the Sidonians, having no alliance with anyone. And when the men went back to their clans, Zoah and Eshtaol, the people asked them, "What did you find out?" Now, I want to say something about this. This is a sad case to me. This town, Notice that they were living quietly. They were a prosperous town, peaceful town. By all signs here, this was one of the greatest places to live. Except one problem. They had no alliance. They were far out. And this would be their downfall. It sort of reminds me of Ukraine, which we see in the news today. Verse 9. They answered, "Come, let us go up against them, for we have seen the land, and it is very good. Why wait? Don't hesitate to go and invade and take possession of the land. And when you get there, you will come to an unsuspecting people and a spacious land, for God has handed it over to you. It is a place where nothing on earth is lacking." 600 Danites departed from Zoar and Eshtaol, armed with weapons of war. They went up and camped at Kirath Jearim in Judea. This is why the place is called the Camp of Dan to this day. It is west of Kirath Jearim. And from there they traveled to the hill country of Ephraim and arrived at Micah's house. The five men who had gone to scout out the land of Elisha told their brothers, "Do you not know that there is an ephod? Do you not know there are an ephod, household gods, and carved image overlaid with silver in these houses? Now think about what you should do." So they departed there and went to the house of the young Levite at the home of Micah and greeted him. The 600 Danite men were standing by the entrance of the gate, armed with their weapons of war. Then the five men who had gone to scout out the land went in and took the carved image overlaid with silver, and the ephod and the household idols, while the priests were standing by the entrance of the gate with 600 men armed with weapons of war. Now, this is the way it was back then. If you were weak, you got taken advantage of, okay? You got beaten. A lot of times your land was taken, your things were taken. You went into slavery. Verse 18. And when they entered Micah's house and took his carved image overlaid with silver, and the ephod, and the household idols, and the priest said to him, "What are you doing?" They told him, "Be quiet and keep your mouth shut. Come with us and be a father and a priest to us. Is it better for you to be a priest for a house of one person, or for you to be a priest for a tribe in the family of Israel?" So the priest was pleased and took his ephod, household idols, and carved image, and went with the people. They prepared to leave, putting their small children, livestock, and possessions in front of them. After some distance from Micah's house, the men who were in the house, after they were some distance from Micah's house, the men who were in the house near it mobilized and caught up with the Danites. They called to the Danites, who turned to face them and said to Micah, "What is the matter with you that you mobilize the men?" He said to them, "You took the gods I have made, and the priests." He said, "You took the gods I had made and the priests and went away." Now, I want you to kind of notice this. You took the gods I made. Now, just notice that statement. You took the gods I made. So he says, what do I have left? How can you say to me, what's the matter with you? The Danites said to him, "Don't raise your voice against us, or angry men will attack you, and you and your family will lose your lives." The Danites went on their way, and Micah turned to go back home because he saw that they were stronger than he was. After they had taken the gods Micah had made and the priests that belonged to him, they went to Laish, to a quiet and unsuspecting people. They killed them with the swords and burned down the city. And there was no one to rescue them, because it was far from Sidon, and there was no alliance with anyone. It was in the valley that belonged to Bethroth, and they rebuilt the city and lived in it. And they named the city Dan after the name of the ancestor Dan, who was born to Israel. The city was formerly named Laish. The Danites set up the carved image for themselves. Jonathan, the son of Gershom, son of Moses, and his sons were priests for the Danite tribes until the time of the exile from the land. So they set up for themselves Micah's carved image that he had made, and it was there as long as the house of God was in Shiloh. So again, this is just a, I don't know, just a very horrible, right? The depravity here that we see with Israel. And of course, this is kind of, it is showing us, this story really shows us just how bad could be. This is leading up to them having the need for a king. The king won't stop the sin, however, because if the king is sinful, then, the people will be sinful. What is sad about this city, however, like I told you, I think about Ukraine because that Ukraine sort of was in the same sort of situation where Russia invaded it. You can ask the question. I'm going to limit what I say because my knowledge of that whole situation there is very limited. But it seems one of the reasons why Russia invaded it was because they did not have any alliance. Okay. But anyway, well, and it also shows this. Keep this in mind. In a sinful world, even if you do everything that's right, these people built a place. They had a home, a city. It thrived. It was a peaceful town. It was a lovely town. The problem was sinful man. They saw it and go, they're ripe for the pickings. They saw what they had. Now, what is amazing is look at the sinfulness today. How we see sort of the same thing being played out today. All right, guys. Chapter 19 in the next study. I'll see you then. And by the way, it gets worse. The story gets worse. All right, chapter 19 in the next study. I'll see you then.